Hey guys, what's up? This is Casey. This is Coach Tom. This is Team Shot Science, and this is Shot Science Overtime number 122.
Ooh.
So if you haven't seen the 121 that we've done already, let me give you a rundown of what we do for these shows. This is a 1-hour show where we have a topic that we discuss that we think is going to help you guys develop your game, make you a better basketball player. So, the topic could be anything in basketball. Today, it just happens to be how to be basketball fast, and we'll explain that in just a few minutes. But what we want to tell you is that while we're having this topic discussion, you guys are going to be sending us questions on anything basketball related so that we can help you develop your game even further for you specifically. So if it's anything on shooting, dribbling, passing, defense, talking to your coach, developing your athleticism, whatever it is, send those questions to us, and you can put them in the chat here on the YouTube stream. You can put them on the Q&A app here in Google Plus, or you can send them to us on Twitter. That's probably the best way to get a hold of us. We are at Shot Science on Twitter, but you can get a hold of us on any of our social networks right now, whether that's Facebook, Google Plus, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is. Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer your question during the show. Okay. So what happens now is that we're going to get into our topic. This is not a regular Shot Science video. This is specifically to answer your guys' questions. But our topic for today is how to be basketball fast. So what I mean by basketball fast is not necessarily athletically gifted fast or having speed and quickness and all those things. I mean having skills in your possession that make you kind of basketball ready, basketball athletics or athletic. So things like being able to change directions, change speed, have a quick first step, beating the guy to the spot on defense. All of these things are things that make you basketball fast because you take away the advantage of somebody else that might be more athletically gifted because you have these kind of technical skills down, right?
Yep. Very true.
So what are some things that you think about that?
My thoughts on it as I was thinking about this earlier is the fact that actually speed is the ability to accelerate quickly. And speed is not necessarily in basketball measured on how fast you can run from one end of the court to the other. Basketball is played in such short bursts, and they're played at all different angles on the court. Very seldom do you ever get a chance where you get an all-out sprint unless it's on a fast break. And usually, that takes you about 3 or 4 seconds, and then that is over. And so the thing that is really important is to learn that speed is more about acceleration on short distances. And whether it's working with your feet or just your overall speed, changing directions, closing out on defense, those are all things that have to do with those little short, short foot or leg movements to get where you need to be really quick. And so one of the things that we need to be able to do is we need to be able to get into those little short sprints in a lot of different situations. So we should practice those. One of the things that comes to my mind in practicing them is that if you're working on your basketball slides or short closeout and stuff like that, maybe having you turn in a direction and then go. And they're just short sprints like I was talking about just a moment ago. That really is important. And getting from one place on the floor to the other as quick as you possibly can, that's all important in that speed too. Learn how to shuffle your feet. That's something that a lot of people don't do very well on defense, is to be able to shuffle their feet quick enough to be able to close out on defense or to stay with a person who is attacking the basket. So you need to work on those foot motions or
footwork in general,
foot patterns to be able to play fast or faster.
And the other thing too is being able to kind of do it without telegraphing, so that the person can anticipate what you're doing.
Exactly.
It's especially true on things like your quick first step or on defense, beating them to the spot. So these are things where you are kind of taking control of the situation. You're not sitting back and waiting for this guy to set you up and then have to react to them.
Right.
If you are forcing them to react, then maybe your athletic speed and quickness doesn't even really matter that much. because you've got kind of this mechanical, technical quickness and speed that you put together, because it's so deceptive, because it happens without telegraphing what you're doing. It's a lot of times you'll see these guys out on the floor that aren't necessarily the quickest guys on the planet. So you'll have guys like maybe Steve Nash or Chris Paul. Those guys are definitely very quick and fast guys, but compared to the athletes that they go up against in the NBA, they're probably not as athletically gifted as those guys, but they beat those guys because they have the right footwork, they sell the moves, they are taking control of the situation and aren't allowing them to be anticipated by the other person. So a lot of it is really kind of these technical pieces of footwork and kind of how you approach your technical basketball abilities.
Yeah, and there's several things that influence this that we don't have much of a control over. One of those is just maturity. If you take a look at a freshman boy or girl, and you measure them against a junior or senior boy and girl as far as their speed and quickness, you're going to find that typically there's quite a bit of difference there between the two. And if you take a look at a freshman team, JV team, varsity team, you find that there is a different change of speed of execution on all of those levels. And part of it has to do with the maturing of your bodies as you grow up.
And coordination and things like
that.
Yeah,
all of that coordination, everything kind of comes into play there. But one of the things that also happens is that you can do something about increasing that even at a younger age, just by setting yourself good patterns, and good patterns would be learning how to execute footwork and do that effectively. We talk about acceleration in basketball and all kinds of sports, and that is the ability to start and get to a very high speed very quickly. And, one of the things that we don't really talk very much about is in basketball is particularly important, and probably soccer and football as well. And that is that you have to learn how to decelerate. In other words, you need to learn how to slow down as well. And so if you have an all-out sprint for 15, 20 yards, and you're working against somebody or they're working against you, you have to learn how to decelerate so that they don't have separation from you because you overrun it. And so deceleration and acceleration, which are elements of speed, both of those things are really important for us to learn as basketball players.
Yeah, and that all comes back to footwork again.
Yep.
And, one of the things, too, that people don't consider is, your center of gravity and being low to the ground and being able to have weight distributed properly on your feet. Some of the things that make you quicker that a lot of people don't even think about are just the fact that the way that you stand on your feet can make you a split second slower or a split second faster. A lot of times you see those guys out there and they're just walking around flat-footed, lock-kneed and stuff like that. And then they try to react and they have to unlock their knees. They have to, transfer their weight up onto the balls of their feet. But if you're already in that kind of position and ready to go, then you don't need to do any of that stuff. You are set and you've done that work before, you have to use it to react.
Right.
But if you are, and you see a lot of big guys that do that because I don't know if it's laziness or if it's just they haven't been drilled. But I know that when we were coming up and we were going to basketball camps, if we weren't in line waiting to do something, we were down in some defensive stance or something like that. We were in some kind of athletic stance ready to go because they were trying to drill into our mind that you had to be prepared all the time. And, a lot of times you see basketball these days, and it's one of those like, we walk through the snow 5 miles to get to school thing. But, one of the things that we had drilled into us when we were younger was that you had to always be prepared, no matter where you were on defense. The ball could be 93 feet away from you, but you were ready to go and alert on defense. And now it seems like a lot of people, they're down there, maybe the ball's 20 feet away and they're lock-kneed standing straight up and down. That makes you slow. You can't react as fast.
Exactly.
And that's why a lot of people, they'll get backdoored by some guy because they're not ready and they have to do all of those things to react to catch up with that guy. And that guy he's the one in control. He's already made the move. You have to react to him. You don't want it to ever be like that. You want people to react to you. And that's one of those things that makes you basketball fast, is forcing people to react to you, not the other way around.
Right. You know, as Casey was talking there, it kind of reminded me of something that I've seen over and over and over for decades, and that is that teams that play zone defense typically are standing straight-legged for the most part. They don't get really serious about getting down into their stance until it's too late. And maybe there's somebody attacking a seam and trying to get into the middle, and they're not ready to do anything about it. And so they have to break down. And by the time they get there, that person is already gone and by them. And so they can't really help on defense very much. So the idea of being prepared, like Casey's talking about, is really essential. And that's part of that whole speed element, is that you don't have to take extra time to get ready to go. You're ready to go immediately. And so how do you work on this? That's probably another thing that's really important. And, you know, probably the most important element in developing speed has to do with your body strength. And sometimes if you are weak physically, you're not going to be quick. If you are immature physically, you're not going to be very quick. And so the things that you can do to help yourself there become a little quicker is to work on some conditioning so that your body gets, I don't know what the right word, more conditioned for speed and play. And such things as this, is that you could set up a whole program. I've seen them over the years and a lot of different kinds of them, but conditioning programs in basketball should be centered around short sprints.
Well, this is like basketball specific training.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we talk about this all the time because people are always saying, you know, should part of my routine be to run long distances? Like, should I run 5 miles a day? And we will tell you every time that you should never do that,
right? Because
that is not specific to basketball. There's no time during a basketball game where you are, you know, kind of pacing yourself into a 5 mile run. Right. That never happens. And so what you should do is train specifically for basketball, which is short sprints over short distances. You know, and so we tell people to do interval training so that, you know, they're doing something like a suicide, or they're doing the ladder drill, or they're doing
short shuffles.
Yeah. And because you need to break it up, because it's all about kind of developing that kind of muscle memory. If you're doing things that aren't specific to basketball, then it doesn't translate very well back.
Yeah.
And you know, but that's all about developing kind of very specific athleticism,
right,
and quickness. I would also say that court awareness and court vision also help you with your basketball quickness and being basketball fast, because if you are aware of what's going on the court, then you are cutting out that reaction time again. Because if you're that guy that's playing defense and you're turning your head every time to look where the ball is and look where your man is, if you are looking the wrong way at the wrong time, you are toasted. Yeah. And if you have the right technique where you are pulling yourself back, using your peripheral vision, you don't have to look at either of them directly. You see the ball out here, you see your man over here, and you don't have to turn your head like this. You can react in the proper time frame to be able to make a difference. And you know, a lot of people don't do that, and so that makes you slower. So you don't want to do that. To be basketball fast, you have to be aware. You have to be able to make the other people react to you. And I think that one of those things is court vision and court awareness.
You know, really, that's all capsulized in one word that we use an awful lot, and that is anticipation. One of the things in basketball, and probably a lot of sports as well, is anticipating or looking ahead to something that may happen as a result of some activity on the floor. And so the thing that's really important for you is to learn how to anticipate and utilize that speed or quickness maybe that you've been working on. One of the things that happens that really screws up anticipation are straight legs. In the game of basketball, you should be played in a low position with your butt down and your back straight. And you want that stance to be a relatively widespread so that you can cover a lot of area.
Well, that's the same thing as footwork and having the right kind of center of gravity and things like that, and be able to react in time when you are on defense.
Right.
So, I mean, we're kind of reiterating the same things over and over again, but you guys should be taking away from this that you have to drill into yourself proper footwork. You have to drill into yourself proper technique for all these different things like defense and, these offensive moves and being low to the ground and having good athletic stance and athletic explosion. You need to train for basketball specifics. And, you need to really just work on being aware.
Yeah.
Don't let your guard down. Don't rest. If you are out on the court, you have a job to do. It is not stand locked-legged, looking around up in the crowd, or not being in it. Because the second that you do that, you will be the guy that gets beat off on defense. You'll be the guy that gets beat on offense. And even if it was that split second where you had time to react, that's what it comes down to in basketball.
Right. And that is a progression that begins when you first pick up a basketball. And that progression means that you need to get work on your quickness and all of these different foot speed items and anticipation items so that you can play this game at a high level.
But drill yourself early because you want to make it a habit.
Yeah.
If you're the person that doesn't do that, you're going to be, in major trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're going to stop our topic right there. Hopefully that helps you guys. We're going to have more on that at some later point because that's one of those really important things. But I want to tell you guys to send us your questions. And I don't know if the comments here are working on YouTube. I think they're not, because we're not getting very many questions here. So if you're having problems there, send them to us on Twitter. We are at Shot Science on Twitter, and we will answer pretty much anybody that sends us a question on Twitter. Or somewhere else, because we need you guys' question to do this. We will shout you out if you send us your question, and please go out and tell your friends and family to watch the show, because that just helps us, have a good show next time, and also get, more cool guests to come on and talk to you guys. So I guess we're going to jump into questions. Let me hop on Twitter and see what we can find here. Let's see. This one is from Alex D, who is at BullsFan42 on Twitter. He says, how do I guard off the ball and in a 2-3 zone?
Off the ball.
Well, so you're away from the ball in the 2-3 zone.
Right.
It kind of depends on which position you're playing.
That's really true. If you're playing a guard position in a 2-3 zone and you're offside, you want to take and probably be right near the middle of the key area along the free throw line so that you can stop up that gap between you and the other guard if they should come over the top. So that's kind of where you want to be there. If you are the forward or playing deeper, you want to take and be over, and different people teach this in a different way. I like the idea that if you're on the help side, that you're going to have your entire body into the paint in the help situation there. Now, what you do give up when you get too far in toward the middle is you give up the fact that they may skip the ball to your person and you're going to have to close out quickly. But we work on our players being able to do that. When we play man-to-man defense, we actually get all of the offside players, the help side players, all to the split line. And a split line is that line that goes from basket to basket, full length of the court. And what happens there is that it is really difficult for people to drive the middle, because you've got the student body there waiting for them. But the thing that you do give up is the possibility of them quickly passing it to the offside of the floor and you not being able to get there, or going there in such a crazy manner that they can give you a little up fake and go. So I would say that in that 2-3 zone, probably your coaches are going to teach you that when you are on the help side, you want to get over and get at least one leg in the lane. We like to go further. And then if you're playing the guard position up high, you probably want to get over so that you're just about on the split line in the middle of the top of the key.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it also really depends on where the offense is too, where the ball has rotated. So you have to be aware. And again, court awareness becomes a huge issue. And typically, your coach, and you should have a good idea where you should be, but your coach is probably going to tell you where you need to be on that.
Yeah, and the reasons for being in those positions as well.
Yep. Okay, let's go to another question. This one is from Ichiro Hanzawa, who is at iHanzawa on Twitter, says, what are drills to improve my shooting accuracy on the three-pointer?
Well, this is something we cover almost every week, but let's run this one back through again. One of the things that we do and we think is really important is teach people what we consider to be good shooting mechanics. Okay. And then once we have those taught, and it usually takes place over a couple of meetings, but then after we teach that, then we recommend that they spend time using our form shooting drill to perfect the muscle memory of this new shooting motion and erase the muscle memory of the older one. We don't want them to have pieces of this and pieces of that. So we want to either clean the slate, so to speak, of when you're working on this. And if you go to our channel, our YouTube channel, you will see our video on the form shooting drill. We have several different versions of it that we encourage. One of them is just the basic, where we have 5 locations on the lane, and we're going to take and make 10 shots from each one of those positions using good form. And what I always tell our players is this, is that you are the person responsible for evaluating the elements of your shot, the mechanics of your shot, and not to treat yourself too well. You want to be a little bit, you want to be a little harsh with yourself so that you get these right and you continue to do that. And then after you go around all 5 stations, and then you turn and go back around, and you will have made 90 shots, hopefully with some good form.
Well, I think that one of the major keys with 3-point shooting is to work up to it.
Well, yeah, we didn't get that far, but go ahead.
I know, but I mean, it's one of those things where people think that there's some switch you flick or something like that, it makes you a good 3-point shooter, and that just isn't the case. It's one of those situations where you have to work yourself progressively back to being able to shoot the 3-pointer, because if you start super close in and you're just making those short shots, of course that's going to feel good. You're going to have that kind of flowing. As soon as you step back and try to shoot from 19.9, you are going to find that your mechanics are going to break down because you haven't built up the muscle memory to make that stuff happen. So you need to progressively work yourself back, because instead of heaving the ball from 19.9, you're going to start out very close from 2 feet in, and then you're going to take a step back after you master that close area, take a short step back, and every 6 inches, you're going to take a step back and work all the way around and make sure that you are making all those shots. And when you do that, you can take a step back and then take a step back. And it might take you a few days, might take you a few weeks, but eventually you'll get back to 3-point distance, and you will be making those consistently while maintaining your shooting mechanics. And that is essential, because you want to be able to shoot from 4 feet exactly the same as you shoot from 20 feet.
Right. One of the first things to go when we start moving away from the basket is we don't get enough leg power involved in the shot. And so we then start to kind of rack our shoulders trying to get additional power. And what you want to do is that shoulder and arm motion wants to stay the same all the time, no matter where you're shooting from on the court. And what you need to do is learn how to engage the legs so that they are providing the power. That is the biggest muscles in our body, and we want to be able to utilize those as we move away from the basket. Very important that you keep that in mind. And like Casey said, moving out in stages is essential as well, because we don't want to have the racking of the shoulders trying to get more power when we shoot, because you can imagine immediately that that's going to drive the ball offline.
And that's how you should approach anything when it comes to shooting, especially, is progressively taking those steps back, and take a little bit longer than you want to do that, because if you go quicker than you want, then you will not be building that up kind of where you need to be. Right. And the other drill that we think is really good is also our buddy Coach Dennis Stanton's spin shooting drill. And that is really good. Once you kind of get the mechanics down, if you've worked yourself progressively back, you can start using Coach Dennis's drill, and you can start working on your ability to shoot off the dribble and off the catch. And that kind of gives you that game speed, game intensity approach that you need to have before you apply it to playing in the games. So make sure you kind of work. It's not fun to sit there and just do the form shooting drill all the time, unless you have the right mindset. But it's something you have to do. And then you can kind of, once you have those mechanics locked in, you need to keep polishing them and maintaining them.
Yeah, daily.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Let's talk about consistency, because we get questions all the time from people that are saying, my shot is spotty. It'll be great this day, then it'll be crappy the next day, and it's not working for me. The thing about there's two things that we should say about that. One is you have to be consistent with your practice if you want to be consistent with your results.
Right.
So if you are shooting a few days a week, let's say your shooting is on Monday and Wednesday, that's all you work on your shooting really. If you try to come in on Sunday, your shot is probably not going to be there.
That's right.
Because you haven't worked on it since Wednesday. So, one of the things that you need to make sure you're doing is you're hitting all of these very specific basketball mechanics every single day. Maybe you put different emphases on different days, or you vary your routines or your drills or whatever. That's fine. But you need to make sure that you're touching on all these things every day, because your shooting, if you're not doing it every day, it's going to take a major dip if you haven't done it for 3 or 4 days.
Right. It will.
So you need to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And people talk about great shooters like Ray Allen and Stephen Curry and people like that. They are working on their shot every single day, and there's not a day that goes by where they don't work on it.
Yeah.
And so that you have to have the same approach. And people talk about, what are my priorities? What are, I have school, I have blah, 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 blah. Well, you have to figure out what works for you. Obviously, school is always more important than sports. You have to be that way when you're younger. It may not be the most fun thing, but you have to really prioritize for that. But then when it comes to basketball, it depends on how much you want to be a great basketball player. And that might cut into, hanging out with your friends. It might cut into playing video games. It might cut into cruising the internet. It might cut into, whatever it is. Family time. And so maybe you need to help bring your family into your practice or something. I don't know, but you need to figure out what it is that is important to you and prioritize for that. And then once you've prioritized your time to practice and play basketball, then you got to prioritize how you are training. And that's, one of those things where consistency comes into that realm. So you need to work on that.
Yeah, one of the things about developing good practice plans is this. We don't always feel like we want to do it. We wake up in the morning, we have breakfast, we're going to go out and we're going to take and spend 45 minutes working on our ball skills and our form shooting. And maybe we wake up the next day and, well, I'll do it this afternoon. And what happens when you allow that slippage, pretty soon you're not doing anything for 3 days or so. What happens, however, is that usually when you set up a regimen of practice and you stay with it and stay with it and stay with it, if you miss a day, you begin to feel bad because you missed it. And so when you once get into those patterns, then it's a lot easier for you to keep those going than if you just you take and make excuses for you don't want to do it or shouldn't do it today.
Yeah, and you have to have accountability, because if you aren't accountable for yourself, then nobody else is going to be. And a lot of people whine about, I'm not getting enough playing time, or I don't have enough time to do such and such. That is 100% on you.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what coach you're playing for, what team you're on, whatever. It is on you. If you are not getting the playing time, it's because you didn't put in the work that will make you the person that's on the floor. Because unless you have some demented coach or some coach that has some weird agenda, even then you should be able to supersede that, because they need to put the right people on the court to win the game. Yeah. And you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself and make it happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, and sometimes we're not really aware of what we need to do. And this is going to be a little sideways movement on this, Casey. I met with a young guy yesterday who has been a student of mine for several years, and I haven't seen him for about 4 or 5 months. And now, as we're moving closer, I think we're about 12 weeks from starting the basketball season. We had this discussion yesterday, and the discussion is this, is that you need to spend time working on these things. You need to work on your ball skills. You need to work on your shooting skills from set, jump, free throw, and all of those kinds of things. You need to work on that and work on them really a lot. And here's the thing. He's not very big. He's maybe 6 feet tall. He's never going to be playing around the basket because he's not going to be that big. He might be 6'1", maybe or 6'2" even. But the thing is that you have to realize the important things that you need to work on to make you a better player. For him, he needs to have better ball skills, and he needs to be able to shoot better. And so he needs to focus on those particular elements if he's going to have a chance to play. Okay, and that's just the reality of it. If you don't, let's say you go out and you do nothing but work on your shooting, and that comes along pretty good, and then you go play a game, and the first thing that happens is they realize that you can shoot the ball. That defender is going to be in your face for the rest of the game. So you have to learn how to deal with that and attack the basket and put them at a disadvantage. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into making basketball players.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about it is, again, it's 100% on you to figure all that stuff out.
Yeah.
You need to be accountable for all of those things. And, the other thing, too, that we talk about this all the time as well, is that people are asking us, oh, I'm a point guard. How do I develop my point guard skills? Or I'm a shooting guard, blah, blah, blah. You should never worry about your position while you're trying to develop your basketball game, because it almost doesn't matter if you have the approach that you are going to be a basketball player, because really that makes you way more versatile, makes you way more valuable to a coach and a team. And it doesn't pigeonhole you in a situation where you might be you're trying to find your way onto a team where there's two great point guards ahead of you, and you will not be playing point guard ahead of any of those guys. So you've just talked yourself out of really playing for that team. But if you're able to play basketball and you have these well-rounded skills, maybe you can slip into the 2 or the 3 spot. Yeah. And you never know. And then there's people like Anthony Davis or Kevin Durant or, fill in the blank, who are these guys that, or even Tim Duncan, he would be another kind of different way. But these are these guys that maybe they developed their skills very early. They didn't know how tall they were going to be or how athletic they were going to be. And all of a sudden you have a guy like Anthony Davis who jumps up 10 inches in like a couple of years or whatever. And he goes from being the short kid playing point guard to being the center / power forward that can run the floor and dunk on guys while still maintaining his ability to ball handle and shoot the deep shots.
Right.
So that's kind of the approach that you need to have. Stop worrying about, I want to be a center. That's my position. I want to be a point guard, blah, blah, blah. You need to just be a basketball player. Coaches will find spots for basketball players. They will not find spots for the point guard that has no other skills.
Yeah.
Right. And, traditional positions in basketball are becoming less and less important. The guys that play the big man position, they need to be able to run the floor and shoot the ball and play defense in and out of the post.
And step out to the perimeter. Yeah. Yep. They have to be able to do that.
While the point guards need to be able to distribute the ball, play inside, take the ball to the basket, shoot, and play defense inside and out.
Yeah. I
mean, you really have to be able to play every position. And if you can't, you find yourself as being that utility guy that either doesn't make the team or he gets to play the last 30 seconds of the blowout.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy. All right. That's a rant that we have almost every week. Here's a question from Mohammed Ibrahim, who is at XX Mohammed 99XX on Twitter. He says, how can I steal the ball without getting a reach-in foul? That's we have thoughts and philosophies on playing defense around stealing the ball and stuff.
Yeah, if you as a defender are too much preoccupied by trying to steal the basketball, you're going to find yourself in foul trouble pretty easily. And the thing that's really important is that you can usually have a better chance of stealing the ball if you get yourself in a position maybe where you can cut the ball off and tap it out and then go get it. When you start reaching in and trying to deflect the dribble or take the dribble away from somebody, you're setting yourself up for failure. And the failure is going to be that you're going to end up with fouls on it. What is really more important is being a really aggressive defender who is in that guy's face all the time, putting pressure on him. And maybe he throws a bad pass, or maybe he gets the ball up in a position where you can tap it away. But I would not encourage you to just put your defense all on the fact that you're going to steal the basketball. That's not going to work very well for you.
Well, here's the thing that you need to be thinking about when it comes to your defensive approach. And that is that if you're the handsy guy, you will get called for fouls. That is just as plain as it will be. You may never touch the guy. You may never actually commit a foul, but you will be called for fouls because referees who knows what they're watching, who knows what they see, who knows what angle they're seeing it from, you will get called, because if it looks like a foul to the ref, they're going to call it, even if you don't touch the person.
Right.
So the way to get around that is don't be the guy that is doing the crazy hands and is trying to get your hands on the ball, reaching across the guy's body. The place that you get the most steals from is intercepting passes and anticipating passes, stepping into the passing lane. And if you watch most guys that are great defenders, sure, they'll get a few where they pick the ball off and the guy tried to cross over and they get their hand down in the crossover path and they pick it off, or they poke it out while the guy is trying to change directions or whatever it is. But most of those guys that are getting all these steals are stepping into passes.
Yep.
And they're
anticipating the passes.
Yeah. And and you'll see that when somebody is rotating the ball or tossing the ball around the top of the perimeter, you can see these guys. And if you see it happen, rewind the tape and watch these guys, because they will see what's happening and they will anticipate that the pass is coming, and they are catching the ball in stride and heading down the neck down to their side of the court. And that is kind of where you will get the most steals. It's not being the guy that is sitting there poking the ball out. That is something that, it's possible, but you're taking a risk, and you are also, you need to be really experienced and know what you're doing when it comes to that stuff too. And, your defensive approach too is also your defensive stance and things like that. And if you watch our Defense 101 video, we teach you about the tip hand and the rip hand. Those are things that will help you in kind of being that guy that maybe gets some touches on the ball, but you're not the guy that's reaching in.
Well, and oftentimes when you are in that rip and tip situation, or even anticipating, and you're going to tip the basketball, and the tip of the basketball may make it be right into another of your teammates' hands, or maybe into yours, but you're not reaching out there and getting that slap on the wrist because you're trying to pick that ball. One of the things that we do teach our players, though, is that if they're presenting the ball to you and you want to reach for it, you always come from the underneath side. You very seldom ever get called for fouls when you're reaching from the underneath side. I've got my hand up and I'm reaching this way as opposed to down where I'm likely to get on the wrist. Here, it's not so noticeable any contact.
Right. And, the other thing is that if you're stepping into that guy's space, you're taking the risk of getting the foul call. It doesn't matter if you foul him. Like I said, referees sometimes see what they want to see, or they see it from an angle that it looks like it's going to be a foul.
Well, the other thing that can happen too is that when you reach, maybe you don't get a reaching foul, but you have yourself out of position and that person drives into you and you have to take the foul because you didn't have good position because you were reaching.
Yep.
And so it's not a smart thing to do.
Yeah, you have to have established position for it not to be a foul on you. And
solid defenses will overcome reaching and trying to steal the ball every day.
Yeah. And it's just that kind of approach that you need to have. And, if you're stepping into passing lanes, you're not going to be fouling people.
Right.
But typically they're going to be fouling you because they're going to try to supersede what you're doing. And you might pick up the foul and the steal. Yeah. So that's kind of the approach you need to have. I want to ask you guys a question. Are you being able to post in our YouTube stream? Because if you're not, that must be a new setting and we need to figure that out. So tweet at us if you're able to post in the YouTube stream for this video, okay? In the meantime, send us your questions on Twitter. We are at Shot Science on Twitter. Okay, this one is from Alex again. He's at BullsFan42. He says, is there a secret to guarding someone off the ball, something I can use and dominate? Secret to guarding people off the ball is it comes down to vision.
Well, it really does. And, one of the things that probably hurts defensive players more than anything else are when players on the offside flash to the middle. In other words, you're on the opposite side of where the ball is, but a player that you're guarding makes a move into the middle of the lane or to the basket, and they cross your face and you end up trailing them. One of the things that we teach all of our guys is that if somebody is making that kind of a move, we step right up and get a forearm into their chest. And sometimes you take fouls on that, but you keep them from catching the ball in the middle of the lane. If you let them go across your face, it's over. Because they can catch it, and from there they can score or dish the ball to somebody else.
Yeah, so that's beating them to the spot again.
You beat them to the spot, and you anticipate where they're going. Now, if they start to like they're going up into the middle court, the middle of the key, and you start to move there, but you catch them moving now to the baseline, you have to react to that, but you never allow them to catch the basketball. That arm wants to be up in the passing lane, and you got
get that
arm bar right on their chest if you can get away with that.
So what you do is you get to the spot before them, get that arm bar into them, and that kind of it's one of those things where they have to react to you again, where maybe you had to react to their initial move, but you stop what they're doing and you make them react to you. But if you just let them do what they want, they're going to catch the ball right there in the middle, and you're too late, because they will have the ball that they're suddenly in more control than they were before. So take that away from them.
Right. And one of the things that we teach offensively is we teach players how to flash the middle. And in other words, they're going to take and flash up to catch the ball, and they're going to look to turn and shoot it right away.
And they're looking for the holes and all that.
They're looking to shoot it first, and then after that, as they turn, they're going to be looking to give the ball to somebody else or to turn and go to the basket. And so you have to take that away by anticipating and not becoming a trailer. You want to come in there and let's call them being a jammer. You want to jam them so there's no place to go. Yeah. And yet the other thing that comes out of that is that tends to create a little bit of what's the word that I'm searching for? They get a little ticked off when you are being physical with them and not allowing them to do what they want to do. Now, you can't get in there and hold them, but you can certainly be in their way. And what they end up doing oftentimes is pushing you or shoving you.
Just be what they run into.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything to them other than get that arm bar up. And they when they bump into that, you've stopped them. Yeah. Stop what they were trying to do.
And you force them to go in another direction. So we think that's a good way to defend from the help side.
One of the things that irritates people is when you take away what they're trying to do.
Right.
What they want is just to be able to go where they want to go, and they're going to find the gaps. They're going to get the ball. They're going to do what they want there. Defenders that really shut people down, and this is both physically and kind of psychologically, are the ones that take it away from them.
Yeah.
Take it away. If you talk to anybody, or if you talk to somebody like Michael Jordan, who was known for his defense, he was in that guy's head, and a lot of it was just the fact that he was not letting that guy do anything that he wanted.
Sure.
He was doing everything that Michael wanted, and Michael was in that guy's head. And once he was in his head, that guy, he was out of it. He wasn't going to be doing anything. Yeah. And so if you want to be a defender that shuts people down, you have to be the guy that's just taking it away, or the girl that's taking it away from the person that you're playing against.
Don't let them do what they want to do.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing about playing off ball too that I wanted to talk about is that we talked about a little bit in the top of this show where we said you want to have good court vision. And a lot of people, when they're playing off ball, they do the head thing where they're doing this 50 times, and it makes me sick because I just got motion sickness doing that. But what you want to do is get yourself in a position where you pull yourself back a little bit further, and you can find those points, your defender, or your offensive player that you're following here, and then you're going to follow out here, and the ball is over here. If you get to a point where you can see both of those in your peripheral vision, then you are in the spot that you need to be, and you don't have to do this. And I can see the ball out here, and I can see the offensive player over here, and I can react in the proper amount of time to anything that this guy's doing. He might be moving up here, so I can adjust and move forward, or I can catch where the ball's going. If they flip the ball over to him, skip the ball over to him, I can adjust and I can maybe pick that thing off. But you need to get to a place where you are in the proper place for you defensively, but also vision in terms of following the ball and your man.
Well, one of the things that coaches don't really tell us too much about is peripheral vision. And that's what Casey's talking about. We have our players, just to demonstrate this, we have them step out, put the ball down, put their hands out in front of us, the fingers up like the thumbs up like this. And then they begin to open their arms up, and almost to a person, they can, and they look straight ahead, almost to a person, they can see their thumbs at 180-degree span. In other words, that's a half a full circle without looking at it. And your vision improves if you step back just a little bit, because now the vision improves, what's the word I'm looking for?
People just come into your peripheral vision.
The vision is better if the case he's talking about, where you step back a little bit, but you need to look straight ahead. You can see all that action in your peripheral vision. You shouldn't have to be snapping your head back and forth.
Okay. Here, this is going to be our last question for today. This one's from Kent Yee, who is at I am Kent Yee on Twitter. He says, "Do you think shooting on a too high goal harms your shooting ability?"
Well, you know,
we talk about this every once in a while.
Yeah.
The thing is that if you are not using the tools that you use when you actually play the game, it's going to have an effect.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way that shooting on anything other than a regulation size hoop is going to be beneficial to you, because if you shoot on a low hoop or you shoot on a high hoop, it's going to affect your shooting, and you're going to have an adjustment period when you try to shoot on a regulation size hoop. And you know, I personally think too, if you shoot on a hoop that's too low, you're probably going to have issues with your mechanics, where maybe you're releasing at a lower point and you might have a flatter shot because you're shooting at a lower target. Whereas if you're shooting on a regulation, you're going to have more elevation on your shooting mechanics. You're going to have to adjust for that. If you shoot on a too high hoop, I think it's similar things. You're not used to seeing that 10-foot regulation height. You're used to seeing a 10.6 or whatever it is that you're shooting at. So you want to try to use all the tools that you're going to use when you step out on the basketball court and play an actual game. You know, it's just like if I threw you a women's ball, a 28.5, and you use that all the time, and then I threw you into a men's game and threw you the 29.5 ball, you're not going to be really prepared and ready to use that right out the gate. You have to go through an adjustment period, just like using any other different tool.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing with hoop height. You gotta be able to. I think if you're gonna be playing in a basketball game, you need to work on stuff like what you're gonna see in the game.
Yeah,
it's just about being prepared for that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that a basketball hoop would be much more than a couple of inches higher, or maybe a little lower even.
Yeah, I mean, a few inches, like 2 or 3 inches, is probably not a huge deal.
It's not a huge deal, but you know, and I can't imagine that if the vertical height is more than 10 feet, that's probably not more than 10.1 or 10.2. That's not the end of the world.
But if it's like 6 inches, that's probably getting into sketchy area.
Exactly,
right
is, yes.
So, you know, I think that, you know, a lot of people, and here's my final rant on this stuff. A lot of people are always coming to us and they're saying, well, I can only shoot at this hoop, or I don't have a place to shoot, or I don't have a basketball, or blah, 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 blah. You know, that is one of those things where it's a hardship that you have to figure out. That is not something that we can give you specific answers to, because, you know, everybody faces these types of things in their life. Maybe they don't have access to a basketball that they think that they have access to, or they don't have access to a hoop or whatever. And if you go look at all these guys that play in the NBA, most of them didn't come from places where they had access to all this stuff readily, where it was just sitting around at their house, or they had a court in their backyard or whatever. Most of those guys had to figure it out. And that's what we tell everybody, is you got to figure it out. You might have to be creative. You might have to make a few phone calls. You might have to send an email. Maybe you have to go find a court at the YMCA, or maybe you have to go talk to your basketball coach in middle school or high school and say, Coach, is there any way that I can get some gym time? Maybe you have to go find another basketball court, playground court in your hometown, and work out there. Maybe you got to get up earlier and go to the court before anybody shows up so that you can get there and have it free to yourself. Maybe you have to save up to get a basketball. Maybe you have to ask somebody if you can borrow theirs. There's so many ways to make this stuff happen. And if you are just asking us those questions, like, how do I, you know, I don't have a basketball, what do I do? You know, to us, we're just like, well, figure it out.
Figure it out. That's right.
You know, it's not something that's on us. We wish we could just give you a basketball. We could just take one and pass it to you right through the screen, but we can't do that. So our best advice is to make yourself accountable for that too. Nobody's going to help you unless you help yourself. So you might luck out and have somebody step in and do something for you, but don't expect it. Make it happen for yourself. All right. Okay. So I think we're going to end it there today, you guys. Let us know what you think down in the comments. And we'll be back again next week, 1 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, for another live show. Make sure you tell your friends and family. If we didn't get to your question today, it's not because we didn't like you. It's because we just ran out of time. And do we have any parting words or anything like that?
No, just thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it so much.
All right,
it's
you guys.
It's a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, and check out our other Shot Science videos on any basketball training stuff. We talk about shooting, dribbling, passing, all that stuff. Make sure you check out those videos. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media sites, because we talk to you guys all throughout the week on all that stuff. And if you have questions during the week, send them to us on those. We are on Facebook. We are on Google+. We're on Twitter. We are at Shot Science there. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and follow us on Snapchat, because we do cool things on Snapchat all the time. Secret drills, behind the scenes, talking to coaches, going to events, stuff like that. So follow us on all those places, and we will see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
See ya.